This is the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Here we go on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Yours truly, Joe Trahan, with the one and only, the ultimate producer, Andrew Seeley. Andrew, how you doing, brother?
Not great. You can hear it in my voice already. What are you going to say?
I got a little something going in my voice, too, and I haven't been yelling at the TV like I suspect you were yelling at the TV.
Might have had something to do with it. Might have had something to do with it. We'll see.
He was yelling at the TV. He was yelling at me. He was
not yelling at Joe.
Everybody.
I was not yelling at Joe. We're saving that for later in this show, and that's a tease.
Yes, it is. That is a tease.
We do have a lot to get into, so let's get right into it with What's on the Show.
Here's What's on the Show, sponsored by NFM.
It is the Cowboys offseason. We've got a new defensive coordinator to find. Matt Eberflus out. Jerry Jones promising to bust the budget. Changes amidst the defense. And Brian Schottenheimer thinks the team is good enough to be a playoff team. We'll break down a ton of options for the future of this Cowboys franchise. Keep an eye on the current NFL playoff structure. And it's the first top 5 of 2026. This time we're looking at the worst things you can say to a diehard fan.
Oh, God.
That's what's on the show, Joe.
Poor
who's
Andrew.
on the show?
Poor Andrew. You know, I'm going to walk off the set later.
Oh,
I'm just
sure,
letting
sure,
everyone
okay,
know. I'm just going to walk off the set because of poor Andrew.
Oh,
All right,
please.
here's who's on the show. We'll get to that soon. Here's who's on the show. The one, the only Mac Engel from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and I'm Mike Leslie. And guys, do we ever have a lot to talk about after the dog and pony show that the Cowboys put on, better known as their year-end presser? And let's dive in right there, because the rhetoric was at sometimes head-scratching, but at the same time, oh, so Jerry Jones. So I'm curious. And Mac, let's start with you. Which Jerry moment, which Jerry quote, which Jerry, I won't say what I want to say. What really stuck out in terms of, like, Jerry, did you really say that? Did you really have your fan base hear that come out of your mouth again?
There's so many to pick from,
yes.
Joe. I think my favorite, there was a few. His first one where he said, like Trump said, I'm running Venezuela. That was one of those, you did not just say that. He said it.
But he said it.
The other, he aspires to win more Super Bowls than New England Patriots owner Bob Kraft has. So he only needs 4 more to go ahead of Robert Kraft. But there was a subtle one, Joe, that I don't know if you caught because it was outside of the press conference amongst the writers, et cetera. And I think I don't know if there's any cameras there or not, but he talked about how losing the nickel in free agency did more damage than they expected. I'm thinking to myself, now, Jordan Lewis is a really nice player. And Jordan Lewis got the contract with Jacksonville. He had a great season. Jaguars had a great season. Everybody's happy for Jordan Lewis. But this idea, Joe, that somehow they were a nickel cornerback away from playing today just illustrates the continued comical nature of the Dallas Cowboys. It's always some random guy. Oh, my God, if we just had Jordan Lewis, things would have been different. So those were my personal favorites from their season-ending press conference.
Yeah, nickel, quarter, $50. They can have all of it. It still wasn't going to happen with the way this defense was constructed. What about you, Mike? What gave you the biggest head-scratching moment?
Definitely the Trump Venezuela comment. Mac, I saw your piece actually on all of this, and I liked the line about how many times we have seen Jerry Jones make the room laugh out of uncomfortable laughter. Did he really just say that laughter, not, oh, that was super funny, and we're just going to laugh along with you? No, like, there's nothing else that my body can do right now but laugh because I'm so uncomfortable with the fact that you just said that. That was another one of those for sure. He seems to have found himself, though, a new pet saying for this offseason, just like All In a couple of years ago. Now he's got bust the budget. And who's going to believe him? Who's actually going to believe that he's going to bust the budget, especially when within the same press conference, or in the press conference that preceded, because the bust the budget came during the period you're talking about, Mac, where it was after the walk-off. In the press conference preceding his bust the budget comment, he made a statement about how, well, I don't want to get everybody's hopes up and then, disappoint everybody when we're not active in free agency. But if there's an opportunity, we plan to be active in free agency. He's already pre-couching his disappointment from this offseason. It's just, it's more of the same. And until he does something that actually makes people sit back and go, whoa, that's like 96 Jerry Jones. Let's go out and get Dion. Let's go out and get Leroy. Until he does something like that, nobody's going to believe him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And for me, you guys, it was the, wanting to retire with the most Super Bowls ever. Because in this, we just ended this 30-year span. We're at 30 years now where they haven't, not only have they haven't gotten to a Super Bowl, they haven't sniffed a Super Bowl, they haven't gotten to a NFC Championship game. The fan base has had to deal with all of this, all of the faults and failings, first of all, of the front office, and then, of course, it goes coaching staff, players, et cetera, et cetera. But first and foremost, dealing with the faults and failings of the front office. And for 30 years, they've been stuck in the desert. It's been this sojourn, this pride-swallowing siege when you have to deal with everything you have to deal with as a Cowboys fan. And instead of making another failure about what the organization wants to do for the fans, Jerry, as he's so good at doing, made it about himself. It was tone deaf, it was ridiculous, and unfortunately, it has become expected. And the fact that he went that far without even realizing what he was doing, I'll come up with something cute, I'll come up with something to keep them talking. No, man, you just kick dirt in your fan base, right in their face. You can't talk about winning 4 more Super Bowls when you haven't sniffed one in 30 years.
Well, it's funny because that's like part and parcel with why Switzer was hired, was he was diminishing the accomplishments of creating a dynasty here. And this is pretty much par for the course for that. It's basically like, anyone can do it. We might as well expect another one at this point because that's the only way he's going to get to 4 is to create another dynasty. And we think he's got at least a solid head coach right now. You've found a good guy in Brian Schottenheimer. You've got the quarterback. So you at least have 2 of the foundational pieces that you would think you can build something extended with. There's just so much else on this roster that needs to get fixed when you have enough money and resources to be able to do better. And that's what's frustrating about this, especially over the course of 30 years. They've had cracks at this multiple times, and they just have not done what it takes to get over the top.
Matt,
how old will Jerry have to be for them to win 4 more? Like, is he in the Dick Van Dyke plan? Like, how long is he going to have to live for them to win 4 more Super Bowls? How long is that going to take?
Well,
how long is it
Mike,
take
did you ever see the movie? Did you ever see the movie The Green Mile? The Tom Hanks character, the guy who just lived forever. That's got it. And hey, don't rule it out. Jerry's got a lot of money, so that plan might work. And so don't rule it out. I mean, that seems plausible. Have you ever seen Jerry's yacht? Don't rule it out.
Would see 4 more Super Bowls.
I could not believe you were able to Mike, like, even bring up Dick Van Dyke and Jerry Jones. and Dick Van Dyke is just such a good dude. Anyway, we won't go further down that rabbit hole because we have to take a break. Coming up, though, interesting tidbits that we need to talk about, because as much as the Cowboys are struggling and as much as this season was another disappointment, how much will it take for this season, for this team, for this franchise to turn things around and get back in the playoff conversation? We'll talk about that coming up next.
Today's headlines, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers.
The defending champion Eagles are done. Philly falls to the Niners at home in the wild card round 23-19. San Fran will head to top-seeded Seattle next weekend. And with the Packers loss to the Bears Saturday night, the Cowboys now own the 12th and 20th overall picks in this year's NFL Draft. Joe, NFL fans have gotten their money's worth so far in the playoffs, but I think aside from how incredible the games are, have been back and forth down the stretch, and every single one at this point, the one thing that stands out, every team's got flaws. Every team.
That's the thing right now. I feel like the NFL is more wide open than it's been in a long time right now, and I think that's underscored and exacerbated when you've got Patrick Mahomes at home.
Right. And Lamar Jackson.
And Lamar Jackson as well. From watching these playoffs so far, while the Cowboys have a ton of work to do, if you can just get that defense to middle of the pack, and I know we've been talking about this for a long time, but with the gains you've made on offense and what Brian Schottenheimer has been able to do, I mean, I hate to sell hopium because I don't want to sound like Jerry Jones, but Mac, I'll throw it to you. How far do the Cowboys need to go to get back into the playoff conversation in terms of rebuilding that roster and turning around that defense specifically?
Playoff contention, everybody's pretty much in it, especially the thing, I think, Joe, the thing that was the most disappointing amidst just so many potential options to choose from is the fact that you had a really good, complete season from your starting quarterback. He was upright the whole season, and he played really, really well, and they blew it. And I think Dak Prescott kind of alluded to it in his final press conference after the final game of the regular season. And I think if you're talking about playoff contention, they were kind of close. So contending for playoffs is one thing. This team has proven they can contend for playoff spots. What it has not demonstrated in 25 years, it can't really do anything of note once it gets there. So I think when you say, what's it going to take to get to the playoffs? Not that much. What's it going to take to be counted on, to do something of significance once they get there? That's a different conversation. And as we watch these playoffs and you watch these teams have success, whether it's Chicago last night, San Francisco again today, Buffalo, I think all of us would agree, okay, they're probably not that far away from 10 wins because 10 wins is basically just a few points. But winning those games in January that matter, they've still got a long ways to go.
Yeah, I think they do have one of the ingredients, though, if Dak Prescott can continue playing the way he's been playing under Brian Schottenheimer, right? Because as we've watched these playoffs unfold, these games are so close. It feels like these are, just get us to the fourth quarter. In a strange way, it almost feels like the NBA, right? Yeah. Like just get us to the fourth quarter and let's see who's going to make the great plays down the stretch. And when you got a quarterback playing like Dak, Mike, you got a shot, right?
I think you absolutely do. And I think, honestly, they were in playoff contention on December 4th. Now, when they lost to Detroit, that went away, but they weren't that far. I mean, if they win that game, I think we all felt like, hey, they're going to make something happen here if they had won that game in Detroit that night. They didn't win that football game, and there went any realistic playoff hopes, but they were in the vicinity anyway just a little over a month ago. But yes, to Mac's point, they're a long ways away, especially from a defensive perspective, from competing at the top of the league. And that's where they need to be, and that's where they should be when they have a quarterback playing at the level that Dak Prescott did this season. I thought it was altogether shocking, honestly, to hear Dak Prescott talk the way that he did last week after the finale. Now, he was diplomatic at least a little bit in terms of how he phrased things, in terms of how he couched things, in terms of how he paused at certain moments to make it sound like, I don't really want to say this, but you know what, I'm gonna. He was very diplomatic in how he did all of those things, but for him to lay it out there that plainly that he couldn't square the success of the football team with the way that he played this season, that is a very artful way of saying, hey, when we lost, it wasn't my fault. That's essentially, read between the lines, that's the message there. I think speaks to, one, his frustration, but also speaks to his desire to have a larger voice this offseason in what they do and how they build this football team, and how pointed he plans to be, I think, with the front office about, no, we need to go do X, Y, and Z, and we need to do what Jerry said and bust the budget. We need to go out and do dramatic things to make this football team better, because I'm out here hooping, like CeeDee Lamb likes to always say. I'm out here hooping. Get somebody who can play some defense for me, and we'll go win some football games.
It was the most anti-Dak thing
yes.
I've heard. And that goes all the way back to his rookie year when he was young, but he understood even back then what leadership meant, how the NFL worked, how you're supposed to speak in this forum, on this stage with the Cowboys. But the fact that it came out of his mouth whatsoever at all, the fact that he was almost making it about him, which is something that Dak Prescott never does. When he said, hey, listen, I thought I played pretty good. Don't look my way. I was like, wow, how mad is Four right now? How mad is he? at what they were able to put together on the offensive side of the ball and how they were just drugged down to the bottom of the lake by that boat anchor of a defense that was put together by the front office, and by the way that Matt Eberflus and the players on the defensive side of the ball could not get things together. It was very interesting theater, and we shall see if Jerry Jones and that front office will do something about it. All right, we're going to take another timeout.
Speaking of bad,
we're going to have some fun.
No.
Andrew is going to make
Andrew
me mad.
Seeley's expense.
Yeah, definitely.
I got a feeling it's coming up. I don't know. By the way, I don't know. I have no prior knowledge of any of this. I just have a sneaking suspicion. We'll see if I'm right after the break.
And now it's time for the top 5.
We here at the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show understand the fan experience. All of us, at some point or another, were fans ourselves. Thankfully, we have forsaken the shackles that tie us down to cheering for specific teams and never let them ruin our Sundays. I, of course, am joking, and I am a Packers fan. So to honor the fan experience on a weekend of playoff action that saw some of the tightest played games in recent memory, let's sink the knife in just a little bit more, and I'll put my fan hat on. Here are the top 5 things you don't say to a diehard sports fan during or after a playoff loss. All right, at number 5, we have a spot for the truly ignorant friend who's just trying to help, but doing immeasurable damage. What happened? I thought you guys were good this year. They mean well. They're just trying to understand. Unfortunately, they're forcing you to explain fresh trauma, which is a recipe for resentment. Don't be that person. At number 4, it's the thanks for playing crowd who's just going to say, at least it was a good game. Really? I'm so happy my misery put on a nice show for the rest of America. All those great plays, those magical moments that might have been part of a larger chapter in a story that would last forever. Instead, they're a reminder your teams were so close to moving on you could just taste it, but there is at least some small comfort in seeing the fight, which is why it's lower on down the list. At number 3, I experienced this one just the other day. The premature congratulations. Your team is leading in the 4th quarter. It's rare the comeback happen. I mean, in all likelihood, you're advancing, but you know better than anyone, anything can happen. It's the NFL. Unfortunately, your boss, your friend, your parents, the guy you haven't talked to in 10 years, decides to shoot you a text in the middle of the 4th quarter. What a moment for you guys. My dude, save it when there's zeros on the clock. All you've done is add to the superstition that are tearing at the fabric of my sanity. All right, number 2. You'll get them next time. Really? That's how you decide to help in this moment? Let's think about next season and the 17 games it's going to take to reach this spot again. Tell that to Lions fans who blew a 17-point lead in the NFC Championship game 2 seasons ago have done nothing but regress since then. It's not overboard to say that every playoff loss is a death of dreams for that year's particular group, and next year's success might ease the pain, but it doesn't take it away. And last but not least, number 1, is there anything worse than someone telling you, when you get a little too intense, it's just a game? Look at my man in the Vikings outfit here. You think he puts that on for fun? You think this isn't a massive part of his identity, of his heritage, of his memories, good and bad? It's part of the fan experience. To fan is to be fanatic. Mac, I'll open this up to you. Any of these ring a bell to you, or do you have a particular memory you'd like to share?
Oh, I have a particular one. In fact, Joe might be the one. I was born in. Thus, I was born into the fandom of the Cincinnati Bengals and Cincinnati Reds. Hell and hell too. The Cincinnati Reds were for a long time owned by infamous owner Miss Marge Schott, who in an interview with ESPN said, you know, Hitler was good in the beginning. He built roads.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's who owned my favorite sports team, a woman who said Hitler was good in the beginning because he built roads. After that comes a distant 10th to the dumbfoolery horribleness of that particular comment.
Mike, hop in here.
I don't know how to follow it, man.
Bring it on.
Can't.
So what this made me think of was, because you said, you know, we all still, I did kind of shed fandom about 20 years ago, knowing that I wanted to do this, but I grew up a big fan of a handful of teams, and the team that this segment made me think of was North Carolina men's basketball. And they lost to Santa Clara, of all teams, in the season opener in 2004. I'm a high school kid. My buddy that I played football with knew I was a big Heels fan. And they lose to Santa Clara, of all teams. And I could hear him from down the hallway when I came walking into school the next morning. Santa Clara! Like, just, I mean, bagging on me like there was no... And I wanted to crawl in a hole They were preseason number 4. They were supposed to be fantastic. This is like the Rashad McCants, Sean May. They were loaded. Like, that team was really good. Raymond Felton, that team was awesome. They did end up winning a national championship later that year, so that made it all a little bit better on the back end. But I remember these feelings so well, and it also makes me think, like, your pain right now at just the mention of Caleb Williams is making me kind of thankful for the fact that I did shed the idea of being a diehard fan of individual teams a long time ago, because I get to just watch the games and enjoy unbelievable performances like that incredible throw from Caleb Williams up the sideline against his body that was just magical.
I'm loving to cut you off here so we can get the Saints fans' perspective, Joe.
That's right, exactly. Well, but before that, Oilers fans. Yes. All right, I don't want to hear it because the Buffalo Bills came back on my Oilers. Let's think about Mike Renfro being in, and they started instant replay because of what happened with the Steelers. All right, I'm also from Houston, so don't talk to me about Phi Slamma Jamma ever, because I was 12 years old and crying when Derek Whittenberg missed that shot, and somehow it ended up in the hoop, and they lost. Okay, so I've earned the fandom. Now, I will say this, and I'll close with this. There was someone who was called out in that list. It was yours truly, texting Andrew, because I thought his Packers had done it. They owned that game until somehow that secondary gave it up, and I blame it all on the fact that they got Trayvon Diggs on their roster.
Who played one snap in the first quarter.
I don't care. He's on the roster.
That's probably
And
fair.
he just brought him down. They lose the game.
By osmosis?
There you have it. Yes, the fact that he exists on the field.
0-5 without Micah Parsons, by the way. Thank you, Mike and Mac, for going through all of that with us. We appreciate you as always. Hope to see you again soon. Joe's final take coming up next.
Here's my final take. It's for Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. Hey, Jerry, let's try something different and not make it about you. That's what he did at that press conference when he said he wanted to retire as the owner with the most Super Bowls when he hasn't sniffed one in the last 30 years. Step back from all the branding, step back from all the Jerry Jonesing, and maybe your team will have an opportunity. All right, that's it. That's all we got, Andrew. Good stuff.
And thanks for putting me through that. I appreciate it. I did it to myself. What can I say?
That was fun. Great stuff. All right, that is it, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
This has been the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.